Hi, my name is Effie Nicky, and today we're going to talk about the cardiovascular system. I only have a few slides here. We're going to do a very general overview. Very first slide, I just wanted to make sure we remember back from Chapter 1 what the cardiovascular system is. We see here number 1 and 2. First of all, it's the blood vessels which transport all these various nutrients or waste material in the blood. You see carbon dioxide listed, oxygen, nutrients. They're talking about glucose, amino acids, wastes, anything you want to get rid of. The etc. here has to do with some topics you're going to discuss a little bit later, so I'm just going to leave that alone for right now. But pretty much they're talking about pH, which you'll talk about in respiratory. Second item here says the heart pumps blood. So we have to have a pump pumping our blood through our blood vessels. So this is a very general overview of the cardiovascular system. I'm going to go to the next couple of slides and explain in a little bit more detail what you need to know. This is a part of the circulatory system. In the next couple of chapters, you'll talk about the lymphatic system. If you take the lymphatic system and the cardiovascular system and put it together, you get the circulatory system. So try not to get those two confused. I'll say it again since I messed up. Lymphatic system, cardiovascular system, put them together and you get the circulatory system. Okay, definitions. I want to make sure we just understand the difference between an artery, a vein, and a capillary. You're going to go into more detail in this. This is just to get us started. So what is an artery? It's a blood vessel that carries blood away from the heart. You want to remember artery and away. They both start with A's. That's great. Vein. It's a blood vessel that carries blood to the heart. So any blood that's returning to the heart is going to be carried on a blood vessel called a vein. The last thing here is a capillary. A capillary is the smallest blood vessel. We'll talk more about capillary beds as we get into the cardiovascular system. But this is where your actual exchange is going to happen. So you have arteries coming in carrying nutrients, and you have veins which are going to carry away waste, and the part where they meet, that spiderwork or webbing or netting, that is a capillary bed. So again, you'll talk more about those. Basic definitions. Artery, away from the heart. Vein, to the heart. Capillary, a site of exchange. This is mostly just definitions, and I've color-coded it in blue and red so that we can pay attention to that when we move to the next figure that comes from your book. Pretty much your heart is a side-by-side pump. You have a right side and a left side. They're both pumping blood to different areas. And you can see here the right side is going to pump blood to the pulmonary circuit. Hopefully by now in 202 you can look at the word pulmonary and you should be thinking something about lungs. Pretty much we're going to see vessels that carry blood to and from the lungs. That's the pulmonary circuit. Then we see the systemic. A lot of times you think system. If somebody says, I'm waiting for the medicine that I just took to get through my system. So systemic is everything else. Your fingers, your toes, your legs, your arms. And that's the left side of your heart. So blood vessels that carry blood to and from body tissues. That makes up the systemic. So let's take a look at the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit. There's a lot of words on here. I want to just focus on just the words that we talked about: artery, vein, capillaries, and pulmonary and systemic circuits. So let me see if I can get this pen to work. And let's pick a different color. We'll do green. Okay, well, first of all, we have our heart right here. We said it's a side-by-side pump. So there's a pump on the right side and a pump on the left side. And hopefully we remember our opposites, so this is right and this is left. We said, and there's an exception on here, so just hold on, bear with me for a second. We said if it's taking blood away from the heart, it's called a what? Artery. If we're taking blood, and you can see the arrows, it's taking blood away from the heart. If we're taking blood back to the heart, what are we called? We're called a vein. Any site of exchange is a capillary. So what's this? Capillary. What's this? Capillary. And they're showing the entire body, but where would you find a capillary bed? It would be at various sites in your body. It's not just you have one giant capillary bed. You have thousands of them all over, depending on where you want to deliver nutrients to. Do you want to deliver it to your gluteus maximus, or do you want to deliver it to your rectus femoris? Okay, so we covered artery, we covered vein, and we covered capillaries. Let's talk about pulmonary circuit and systemic circuit. So you can see here, this is carrying waste, right? We said anything going back to the heart, the vein, it's carrying waste material. So here's waste traveling back into the heart. And then you can see it leaves the heart and goes to the pulmonary circuit, or the lungs. So think about this. If you had me for 201, you know I'm going to talk about cellular respiration. So when your muscles are working, what are they doing? They're taking glucose, and they're taking oxygen, and they're turning it into carbon dioxide and water, right? How do we get rid of carbon dioxide? We exhale it, right? So these waste products from cellular respiration are going to be released into a vein, go to the heart, then eventually travel the pulmonary circuit to your lungs, and you're going to exhale that carbon dioxide out. So what do we need on the reverse side? What do we need to get back into our blood so that it can get to the actual muscle, to mitochondria, to allow us to make ATP? So oxygen, good. Oxygen's going to have to come in. So when we exhale that carbon dioxide, the next breath we bring in tons of oxygen. That oxygen is going to travel in this case it's a vein. I'll get back and explain that in a second. You can see red, it goes back to the heart. Eventually it gets pumped back to the systemic circuit, to a capillary bed, so it can drop off oxygen. So let me just erase all of this for a second, go back, and explain a little bit of the controversy here. Ever since we're little, we've been told that arteries are red and veins are blue. That's just something that it's just an easy way because it's mostly true. So we said this is a vein and it is blue, and this is an artery and it is red. Arteries are going away from the heart, veins are going to the heart, right? That's the naming that we're going to stick with. So what I'm saying is kind of forget the red and the blue. It's true 99% of the time, but you can see right here, pulmonary vein, pulmonary artery. It's the same definition. What is this doing right here? This particular blood vessel. It is carrying blood back to the heart. So what's the name for back to the heart? We call it a vein. Over here, what are we doing? We're carrying blood away from the heart. Well, there's the word artery. So you really want to stick with artery and vein. Artery, you're carrying blood away from the heart. Vein, you're carrying blood back to the heart. Realize that it's different when we're talking about the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit. You might have to go back and look over this one more time before that really sinks in, but you can imagine we could come up with some creative multiple choice questions asking about arteries and veins and pulmonary versus systemic circuit. And I think this was my very last slide. And yes, it is. So that was just a quick, short overview. I suggest that you go back and look at that figure that we just talked about and make sure that you understand all the steps and all the words that are there. If you can get this first part down, it'll make your life a lot easier as you proceed through some of these other chapters. Thanks again. I'll see you next lecture.